Look at space travel in the 60s and 70s. It is easy to see why people thought that we would all have our own personal rocket ships by now. So why hasn't that happened? What's happened to flying cars? What's happened to supersonic air travel? What has happened to this dream? What has happened to the visions expressed in the Jetsons? There is no doubt that flying cars that actually operate themselves could be designed now. In fact, many designs already exist. It is also true that we have a staggering amount of knowledge in areas like space travel, compared to that we had back when it was being invented. But just like everything else in society, progress only happens if the financial sector can exploit it for financial gain. In other words, it only happens if they feel they can market it to us. Both the system itself and the state of technology are tied unchangeably to the profit incentive. If it wasn't for the monetary system and the financial oligarchy made up of bankers and the like, there is no doubt this system could be changed, or even overturned altogether. The system we have is set up so that the rich control everything, allowing them to consolidate more wealth and thus more power, and everyone simply exists to line the coffers of the kings of currency. In a hierarchical system, there must be a select few in control over the overwhelming majority. There isn't even such thing as equality in a hierarchical system. Given this fact, is it any wonder that the majority have almost nothing? Anyone who thinks there will ever be peace while the acquisition of wealth is the driving force in our lives is simply deluding themselves. It is the reason that the economy operates in the seemingly dysfunctional way it does, because those in power set the rules of the game in real time to always benefit themselves at the expense of the taxpayer. It is a little like rigging a gambling machine to pay out only when you or your cronies play, and the money that everyone else pumps in simply fills it up again until next time you play. It is the reason wars are fought. Wars are probably the greatest money spinner there is. Wars allowed the military-industrial complex to generate trillions. They allowed the large engineering firms to generate billions because, after all, someone needs to rebuild everything after we've done bombing towns and cities. It is the reason that other nations are exploited for their resources. And it is also the reason that those that have nothing to steal or exploit are left to starve. Money is at the cause of the vast majority of the world's problems. The acquisition of wealth seems to start a never-ending thirst for more and more, and the more you have, the less you would be unwilling to do to acquire more of it. More tragic still is the fact that the more you have, the less you seem to care about others. Especially tragic when there are those that are starving and they are marginalised and ignored, or simply left to rot. Ask yourself this: at what points in your life have you cared most about others? In the good years, when everything is going well? Or in the bad years, when you can truly empathise with others that are suffering? Now, is money itself the problem? Or is there something inherently negative about the way money is used or controlled? The money we use and the economy that inevitably follows is derived from a debt-based fiat currency system. That means that the government sends bonds to the National Bank, like the Bank of England or the Federal Reserve, and asks for paper notes. The National Bank, which is a private corporation ran for profit, with shareholders etc., then prints the money at interest. So every unit piece of currency is already indebted to the public before it has even reached the economy. This debt has to be paid back, and this is done through taxation. But it is worth noting that there is always many times more debt within the system than can ever be paid back. Now, what happens when there is a recession? The National Bank simply prints more money, so there is money to facilitate trade circling around the economy. They also reduce national spending by reducing the nationalised services like healthcare and education, institutions that the wealthy do not rely upon, or, more often than not, even use at all. And simply printing more currency reduces how much each individual unit of currency is worth. What happens when there is so much debt in the system it can no longer sustain itself? The system inevitably collapses. But not before many times more is borrowed from made-up institutions like the World Bank or the IMF, and not before decades of financial terrorism on poorer nations to secure even more money, and not before the very richest have accumulated the vast majority of the Earth's dwindling gold reserves. So what happens when the currency collapses? You guessed it. A tiny exclusive minority have all the wealth, and everyone who does not own gold or some other acceptable currency literally has nothing. When this happens, this will simply be another chance in history for those with power to consolidate their vast wealth by taking everything, including land, businesses, and anything else that cannot be supported because of near universal unemployment and near nationwide bankruptcy.